Hello and welcome. This is Hawkissimo bringing you today's guide for Ymir, Father of the Frost Giants. This is one of the Norse Guardians that's available in the free god rotation cycle. So one of the early picks for those of you who are just getting used to the game and or branching out into new Guardians and want to get your arms around them. My guides are designed for the casual mode player. My favorite mode is Clash, but these guides will also work in Clash, Arena, Joust, and Siege. This is not a conquest guide. The metas there is very different. More counter building involved. You have a slower progression of money and XP in that mode, and more defined roles and responsibilities. So there are plenty of guides online to help you with that. If you play those casual modes, though, this is a great place to start. If you're just learning the god, great place to start. If you simply want to improve your play on Ymir, this is a great place to start. I'll also mention that I'm likely to have a second version of the Ymir guide. One of my clanmates is a fantastic Ymir player, so I may have him come in and do a guest star with me and talk about how he plays them, because there's a lot of flexibility that you have with Ymir. All right, well, with that said, let's hop onto the ability builder and talk about the Hawkissimo version. All right, in the Hawkissimo version here, we have my ability progression guide. This is the sequence that I advise that you start. And if you come to this and your 1 through 20 are blank, you should populate them as follows. And then while you're getting used to the god, or even after you're used to them, set up the auto purchase thing during character selection for your abilities, and you won't have to do this during game. That's what I typically do in casual mode, and then I turn it off for conquest, where I want to do a little bit more counter building. So I have you starting with Glacial Strike. Glacial Strike is 90 points of damage at first level, whereas this one's only 50. It hits multiple targets, so this is your primary source of wave clear. You can see it has a very quick cooldown of 8 seconds, which makes it fantastic, plus a 35% slow. So really, I have you prioritizing your 2, or Glacial Strike if you prefer, above all others, followed by Frost Breath, which is where I have you go at 2nd level, come back to Glacial Strike, finally at 4th level go to Ice Wall and Shards of Ice. Now, I know a lot of certain other gods, I don't always have you level your ultimate, and to make those decisions, what I'm always doing is I'm looking at A, how much damage do I get per rank, B, does the cooldown reduce, C, what kind of other effects are there, and then D, what's its scaling. So I think ABC, we're all clear. Scaling refers to the number that's after the damage that's in parentheses. How much of your power is going to be added to the base damage. And in Ymir's case, you see it is a whopping 150%. Plus it has slow. Well, slow is useful. Plus the cooldown decreases. Well, yippee-ki-yay, we also get 150 damage per rank. We are definitely leveling this each and every opportunity that we can. So I think that will explain the progression order. One thing to keep in mind is your Ice Wall is a feast or famine kind of thing, right? It's great for walling off a retreating opponent, or for sectioning off an area of the map where they would normally be able to walk through a narrow section to cross over, often into jungle, into lane, or the reverse. But if you miscast it, you can also create problems for your allies. So it's definitively why I have you leveling that last, because it does no damage, its cooldown doesn't reduce, and all it does is lengthen the time of the wall. By all means, read each of these abilities on your own time. You're all big boys and girls out there. You can do that. Keep in mind his passive, very useful passive. And let's get on to the item builder. As always, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I think the ability to just look and see the build will make a lot of sense, but I will talk through. So I'm going to give you both an A build and a B build. My A builds tend to be the more self-oriented build, the one that you should probably use more when you're solo queuing and you can rely on your allies a little bit less. And your B build tends to be more team-oriented build, one that I would think about when I'm queued up with my friends and we're on headset together, or during the course of the game they're using their headset and or at least using their VGS and playing the roles and responsibilities as I think they should. Then I can switch to a team build mode. And the template, when you fill it out this way, you see all 5 rows when you're in the store, and it's why you need to fill this out here to save the navigation once you're in the template. So as always, the template's going to go top to bottom, left to right. The first row, and I ignore the column headers. So the first row is where I think you should start. So we're going to go in with Watcher's Gift. Watcher's Gift is not just a conquest item. It's great in other modes too. It's health, it's physical protection, it's magical protection, and you're getting money and life back when minions and jungle camps die and you're not the one who last hits. Very much plays into what Ymir wants to do. I have you going cooldown boots, and I have you going down cooldown boots because his abilities provide a lot of harassment, right? You have the freeze, which puts a stun on them. Your frost breath, the one that I had you level first, puts a slow. Your ultimate puts down a slow. So you're using CC crowd control to harass and harry your opponent and allowing the rest of your team to really take advantage of that. And for that, the first build, the A build, gets you up to max cooldown, and I do that by very quickly going into these boots. As always, you're not going to want to die, and Ymir is slow. So pick up that health chalice. You return to Fountain a lot more in these other modes than you would in Conquest, which means that the chalice refills, which gives you greater and greater opportunity to get a savings by using those potions, have lane presence, get that XP. By all means, I congratulate everybody who says, Hawk, why are you looking at blue potions, mana potions, instead of wards? Shouldn't we always be warding? The answer is hell yeah, you should be warding. Unfortunately, if you're not playing with friends, you'll find that in casual mode, people really fail to ward a lot. Heck, you're playing ranked conquest at the low division ranks, they fail to ward, and you want to pull out your hair and scream. But yeah, ward. I ward all the time. My clan wards. I certainly advocate wards, but I am speaking to a specific audience in a specific meta, and either one is a viable option. Okay, so what do I have you building next? I have you building Breastplate of Valor. Physical protection outweighs magical protection. 3 of the 5 god categories are physical and 2 are magical, so everybody except guardians and mages is doing physical damage, plus you have minion waves and the monsters and the towers and all of that stuff doing physical, so physical always takes priority. This also gives you 300 mana. It gives you the MP5, which is the additional mana per 5 seconds, and it gives you the 20% cooldown. So here you can see you're at 30%. If you look in the right-hand column, and we have offense, defense, utility. The second item down in utility is cooldown. You see it's at 30. Keep in mind the number in parentheses, or the brackets rather, is the hard cap. You cannot go above 40% cooldown if you build additional items. Like, for instance, if I built this and this, technically I have 50% cooldown, but since the hard cap is 40, I am locked at 40. So don't build beyond the hard cap in any category, but I often see people waste it in cooldown above all else. Okay, so another thought about Guardians and Warriors and defense in general. You really want to mix defense with health. That's where you get the best payback, because there are items like that have penetration that reduce your physical armor, right? So that's one obvious way to reduce that. And there are many different ways and factors to have that come into play. But there are also items like Quinn Size that will attack your base health or do a higher percentage of damage based off your health. And for that reason, you want both sides of that equation. And I think that this next item, Gauntlet of Thebes, is a great addition, right? It's 20 physical protection for you and your allies. It's 20 magical protection for you and your allies. Plus it's 350 health. It used to be 400, but it got reduced to 350 in 3.9, I believe it was. Then I have you going into this cloak. This cloak is a fantastic cloak. It's 10% cooldown. It's 40 physical and 40 magical protection. It's 20% crowd control reduction, like slows. And it's got a great passive. That means when you get hit by hard crowd control effect, you're going to reduce incoming damage by 15%. So a lot of versatility there. Finally, while he's not a primary user of power, certainly you saw the great scaling that his ultimate gets, and this is the point at which we can start thinking about really getting a huge power buff. We put on this item, and you saw my power went from 40 to 206 because of the passive on this item, and my melee damage went up as a consequence. Finally, as your last item, when you're ready to sell this, you sell it, and you come down, and I think more times than not, you look to this item. Now, this item is nifty for him very specifically. Why? Well, let's take a look why. So I'll save this and come back to his passive. So his passive is telling you that you're putting out frostbite on your enemies whenever you hit them with one of your abilities, right? And that when you've done that, you're hitting for 100% more damage on your enemy that has the frostbite, and that they're also doing 10% less damage, and that those buffs, both of them, last for 4 seconds. So that's very nice. Now let's come back to this item, and I'll sell it and then buy it so you can see it. Under Offense Lifesteal, you get into Polynomicon. You can see that it's 75 power, it's 300 health, it's 12% lifesteal. Yes, there are better lifesteal items, but I'm not buying it for its lifesteal. I'm not even buying it for its power. I'm buying it because of its passive. Using an ability gives your next basic attack within 8 seconds, plus 75% of your magical power is magical damage. This effect can only apply once every 3 seconds, but you have very fast cooldown. So suddenly, you hit him with an ability, you've applied Frostbite, so your auto attacks for 4 seconds after that are going to hit for 100% bonus. Well, this is going to add the extra 75. So this starts to turn Ymir into a late game juggernaut, and you're gonna be quite happy looking at that 300 physical power at full build when all of a sudden that's coming over to your damage. Okay, so let's talk about your relics, which oddly I skipped over. I think any of these 4 are solid. If you're solo queuing, you certainly don't want to get CC'd in a bad place given your slow move speed. So being able to beads out of that is important. Purification, if you prefer. Likewise, being able to say, hey, I'm damage free for 2 seconds, certainly not shabby. In a more team environment, I think both of these items become very useful. Excuse the cough. I know that there's been a lot of bashing about the nerfs that meditation took, and it's certainly true that, in particular for Guardians who get those big life totals, as they tend to buy lots of health items, you'll heal a little bit less, but keep in mind, in that late game, you should be pushing objectives, and it really is horrible when you're attacking a tower, a Phoenix, or the Titan, and your high damage mage and your high damage hunter have to retreat because they've taken too much damage. One simple meditation can keep them there for the extra 2-3 hits that can transform how that lane is going and push that objective down, and in the case of the Titan, win the game. So don't be afraid to do that. Keep in mind it's also a great refill of your mana and the mana for any other person who's around, particularly your mages, but let's face it, everybody uses mana. So all 4 of these viable, go by circumstance. This is can't go wrong. These 2 as a combo also can't go wrong. Some mix and match, yeah, okay, depending on the game. Okay, the B build. So I would still start with these 2 items in that sequence. This is more of your classic conquest support build, but really it works in all the modes. You go into sovereignty, you give yourself and your allies physical protection and a health regen. You go into Thebes, you add your life total plus 20 and 20 protections to yourself and your allies. And then you go into Heartwood, which is the magical equivalent of sovereignty. So under defense magical, this is, again, an aura item. All 3 of these aura items, if you read these aura items, I'm just going to open this one up so you can see it, because a lot of people misunderstand this. So look at Heartwood's description here. It says 45 magical protection, 200 health, and then the implication here is that only allied gods within 70 units are getting magical protections increased by 20 and their MP5 increased by 20. What it failed to say was you are considered an allied god. So when you're wearing this, you're going to get the 45 base plus the 20 for a total of 65. That makes it just as good as Breastplate of Valor, for instance. Same defense, just different utility. This is a team-based utility, so very, very powerful. All aura items are more powerful than you would imagine. If your allies don't particularly need magical protection, you have 2 other great options. The first is Pestilence. Pestilence is flat out the best magical protection in the game. It has 80 protection, 200 health. Again, both those items work well together. Whether or not there are dedicated healers like Chanje in the game is irrelevant. Everybody is going to be taking beads. Everybody has HP 5. Plenty of gods have self-healing ability, if not team healing, so the passive may or may not come into effect, but just the base is viable. Another one is not Genji's Guard, but Shogun's Kusari is a great team magic aura item. You're getting less protection, right? You're down to 50 instead of the 65, but you are getting 20 MP5, so you are restoring your mana. You get your 10% cooldown, so the other one didn't have, Heartwood didn't have cooldown. You get your 20% crowd control reduction, all those nasty slows and such, but you're also giving attack speed. And remember, with your passive, suddenly Ymir's attack speed is a little bit more threatening than it sounds, but your hunters will love you, your assassins will love you, heck, even certain warriors will love you, like Ravana, who's an auto-attack assassin. So all of those are viable as well. I know I didn't put them in the options list there, but I wanted to discuss them since I was here. This is an interesting utility item. You know, you don't have to go to this. You can go up into the substitute items perfectly fine, but this has health, it has power, it has crowd control reduction, gives you a little bit of damage spike. If you want to come back up into this, perfectly fine. You know, this is more tanky, this is more damage. If you want to continue on the defense side of things, you know, you can certainly start putting on another cloak. You go into sell your starter item. You can, again, increase more magical protection, or Magi's Blessing is underappreciated. Let's talk about that for a moment, because you're going to see that on more and more of my warrior substitute items. Why is this useful? Well, it's only 15 protection for both magical and physical, but it's got the 350 health. Moreover, it absorbs a single hard control effect or a root once every 70 seconds. So again, Ymir's root, or stun, sorry, it's a stun. But think Hades or Ares. They're ultimates that are really messing you up. Well, what this will do is it'll put a bubble around you. If they hit you with one of those two, the bubble bursts, but you aren't affected by the CC. And I think in particular for the physical, Magi's Blessing stacks very, very nicely with Shifter's Shield. So always something to keep in mind. The passive is useful, but the health combined with protection is useful, particularly if you have other items that are providing higher amounts of protection. So we talked about these cloaks as well. All very good. By all means, if you felt that this information was useful and helpful, click the like, click the bell to be notified of when I post new videos. I will continue this series. Click the subscribe, put comments and questions. I'll do my best to get back to you. This is Hawkissimo signing out. Thank you.